Welcome, everyone. Lovely to be with you all. And I apologize. My schedule was a little chaotic this last week and kind of all over the place. So I'm back home and no longer traveling. And so schedule will be consistent until July 16th to the 21st. Of course, some of us will be at Kripalu for our summer retreat, in-person retreat. It'd be lovely if you could join. It's going to be a very powerful time, very magical time. Okay, so let's all find our seat and get comfortable. And why don't we do this? Why don't we start by shutting down our eyes and opening our hearts? And this evening, I invite you just to feel into your heart, to notice, well, how is your heart feeling? It's normal to have some kind of emotional baggage in the space of the heart. But in this moment, I'm going to invite you just to breathe. Breathe a sense of spaciousness, sense of awakeness. And with each exhale, just imagining your heart being cleared of any heaviness, any denseness, any confusion. Sometimes we get in little arguments with ourselves or with others. And so just generally, we're breathing into the heart. And on the exhale, just imagining a wind blowing through your heart and clearing the heart space. So we're breathing and feeling and opening. And just softening. And then as you feel into the center of the heart, beyond any emotionality, or deeper than any emotionality, I invite you to see if you can find this point right in the center of the heart chakra, right in the center of the chest. Point of awake awareness. It's radiant, spacious, it even has a quality of piercing clarity. You feel right into the center of your being. In Tibetan Buddhism, they call this point of bodhicitta. Point of piercing clarity. Again, on the surface of your heart, you might notice some emotion, some emotional debris. And as you're breathing in, you're creating a sense of space. As you're breathing out, kind of clearing away any of that debris. But I invite you to feel right into the center. The center of your heart. Just seeing if you can notice this point of piercing clarity. If you open into this center of piercing clarity, you may notice it has a quality of beauty to it. And what you are is beautiful, is divine, is holy. So again, a couple of you joined a little bit late, and I'll welcome you here. So first, we started breathing into the surface of the heart, creating a sense of space. And on the exhale, letting go of any emotional baggage or heaviness or any arguments with the past or the future. Softening in the body. If you feel right into the center of the heart, there's a point of absolute clarity. Bodhicitta is innately good, innately pure and beautiful, clear. It has a piercing wakefulness to it. So we're opening into this clarity, this beauty. Also the softness, the sweetness. And the recognition that who and what I am is good. Who and what I am is beautiful. Who and what I am is true. And so with that, you can take a couple more deep breaths, and as you open your eyes, and you stay connected to this point of clarity, you may notice that the world is good, that life is good. If you see the other fellow human beings on the screen or next to you, I see some cats and dogs, and they are good. They are good. I want to laugh a little bit because some of the cats and dogs showed me their rear ends on the computer when I was looking at you all. But you know how it is. Animals, they don't wear all the masks that human beings wear. They just are as they are. They are as they are. And so it's good to smile a little bit. It's good to smile. But again, if you stay in this perspective of bodhicitta, like looking, you can even imagine that your heart has two eyes or one big eye looking out. And can you see this beauty, this openness, this radiance? Can you see this beauty, this openness, this radiance? And what is life like when we rest in this place? We're seeing divinity everywhere. Seeing divinity everywhere. And so to be awake means that we recognize our innate divinity. We recognize it. We live from it. We live from the direct experience of this space, this peace, this clarity, this beauty. And then, of course, being awake, our heart sees this beauty everywhere. It sees sees itself everywhere. And so this is why we're on this path. And this will be the focus of the upcoming retreat, if you can make it. Is I'm going to spend 5 days deeply exploring the heart, the space of the heart, what it means to live from this space of love. Now, most of us, when we feel into our heart, there's a lot of pain and confusion. And I'm going to actually apologize to you all. Just the last, I can't even remember how long ago it was, 6 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. It's longer than a month ago. I got COVID again, and it really sent me in a tailspin. It really messed with my health in a major way. But now I've kind of come back from like the land of, being crazy sick, and I'm feeling really good again. And so I appreciate your patience with me, and I needed to take a little time off. And so if there's emails and things that were dropped through the cracks, just please just email me again. And I apologize that I just wasn't able to keep up. I got really sick, and plus I had really bad allergies on top of it. It was not a good combination. Never really had allergies like this. Anyways, what feels good, I went and I went to the Pacific Northwest, went to Oregon, and to Northern California. Jumped in the ocean, went to the redwoods, saw my brother. And yeah, there's a couple of you. I'm sorry I didn't make it to Ashland, and I didn't make it down to anywhere south and to come for a visit. So I just apologize. I was, even though I was on vacation, I still had kind of a crazy schedule. Anyways, when I was driving into town the other night, I came in real late, getting into Durango at night, and I saw this giant shadow just running across the road, and the truck in front of me slammed on the brakes, and I was like, what am I looking at? And it's an interesting experience because our mind, often it thinks it knows things, even like before you see them. It has everything put into a box. We have everything labeled. It's one of the ways we put ourselves asleep, because we're not really so present to what's happening. It's interesting when you see something and you don't know what it is that you're looking at. Or you don't know what it is that you're seeing. Because I saw this massive animal. I was like, what is that thing? And there's a little bit of thought. You say, well, there's a big bear, is what I saw. But he was just charging across the highway. Krishnamurti, he used to say this thing that I'm going to butcher it. It was like, as soon as you see a bird and you label it as a bird, like you no longer see the bird. You just see the concept that you have in your mind. And that you see the definition, or you respond to the definition. But again, it's nice to go on a road trip and to go to some new places. And like I got, I saw a bear the other night that was actually coming home. And a couple nights ago, I was like on the loneliest highway in Nevada. I love the West because it's so big, it's so open, so much space. And I was somewhere in between Reno and I-70 in Utah. Can't remember the highway it was, but it's just this big open space, and it got to be pretty dark at night. And I normally just drive until I can't drive anymore, and I get too tired, and I just pull off in the van, just sleep on the, out in the wilderness somewhere. But I pulled off, and I was like, I have no idea where I'm at. And it was interesting because I pulled over, just went down some like old country road and National Forest Road. And I tried to go to sleep. And I started to have just visions and nightmares. And I was like, and I'm not like a guy who has nightmares. I just go to sleep. And I kept having these visions of, being attacked or being, someone coming and getting me. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? And, eventually, of course, I got to sleep, but the wind was howling. It was just like blowing. And I have this like a big tall van that you can stand up in, and a tall van, it can get blown around in the wind. And I woke up in the morning, and it was so beautiful, where I was at. And there was this little sign, and it said, like, you're on the Pony Express trail. That's like the old mail trail that the horseback riders used to, race their horses across the United States. And it said, like 2 miles away is, one of their old outposts. It's like ruins. It's like just a building without a roof. And so I said, oh, maybe I'll go ride my bike up there. And so I rode my bike, up the trail and went to their old outpost. And as I felt into the energy of that land, it was just all this energy of fear. I thought, oh boy, those riders, they were probably afraid of, because they were on, Native American land. They're probably afraid for their life, and kind of that energy of fear, was in the soil, was in the land, was just, maybe even a couple of them lost their lives. I don't know, but you just felt it. There was even a couple pictures of them, like looking out there, on the plaque, like looking out the windows, and it said how scared they were. Scared for their life, that they would be eaten up or and so it's interesting. It's interesting, the things and the games, like the mind storms that can come into our consciousness. And it's one of the things when you're really open, you begin to notice your feelings. And sometimes when you're really, really open, you begin to feel and experience the experience, you begin to have the feelings of others and the thoughts of others, the feeling of the land. And it was almost comical to me of like how many just nightmarish visions I had just sleeping in my van. Like, I camp out all the time. I'm never scared. And this was something, it's like, these illusions that get stuck in our mind, and sometimes they actually get stuck in the dirt. Sometimes they get stuck in the ether. Part of being awake, of course, I was laying in my van. I'm like, there's no one that's out here coming to get me. And if they do try to come and get me, well, they're going to have a little bit of a fight. I give them a good fight. I had Buster with me too. He'd give them a good fight. He'd give them a good fight. It's a funny thing, being human. Because so many of us were lost in the stories of our mind. And the funny thing is, when I was, camping out on the road here, Like, these weren't even my stories. They were stories of fellas from, and I can't remember, the year was 1860, so whatever the math is on that, 100 and something years ago. And that their stories were coming into my consciousness. Their stories. And so this is why we meditate. This is why we continue to walk on the spiritual path, is to create a greater sense of clarity, because being human, sometimes it's like being a sponge. So we soak up things from the collective realm and soak up things from our partners and our parents, our schools, our education, soak up things from the news. But to be awake, sometimes to be awake is just a rest without any thought, without any concept, without any ideas, without any ideas. We live in a way where we think that our mind is always supposed to be busy thinking and always have the right thing to say. We always have to be, and in this age, we all have to be politically correct, and we can't offend anyone. And it's like, can't say the wrong thing. We have to, have this super ego just watching. So we have our thoughts, and then we have a super ego that's criticizing our thoughts, making sure they're politically correct and all this, kind of thing. But to be awake sometimes is just to be silent, to have no thought about no thing, no thought about no thing. And the beautiful thing about having no thought about no thing is then life becomes magical. Life becomes magical. We had a very magical moment the other day. My wife and daughter, we drove in two different cars because they were going to stay a lot longer than me, but it just didn't work out for them to stay longer, so they came home. But anyways, so the other morning, my daughter, I pulled in after I saw the bear. I pulled into my house and I saw like a bunch of little kids kind of in my yard. And this was like 10 o'clock at night. I was like, what the hell are these little kids doing in my yard? And when I pulled in, they ran off. And the next morning, I walked out to my car and it had, some little, it had these little berries. They were like little cranberries by my car. I looked on the ground and I saw the cranberries. I was like, God, those are funny looking cranberries. And then later in the day, my daughter came home and she came screaming to me. Actually, my daughter gets really excited. And she said, Dad, we have a cherry tree. I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, we have a cherry tree. I have a really big tree in my front yard. And I went out and I was like, oh, wow, look at that. Like, this is a cherry tree and it's full of cherries. And it's funny, I almost bought cherries for like $9 a pound at the store. And here I have this giant cherry tree in my yard. And see, I had a moment where I wasn't awake. I saw a tree and I labeled it a crabapple tree, not a cranberry, crabapple tree. And I thought this tree was a crabapple tree this whole time. I've been looking at it and paying no attention to it. And here, my daughter showed me, because, with kids, like, their eyes are open. They really see when they look. Their hearts are open. They really experience it. So she's not going to see, the little fruit on the ground and say, oh, that's just a crab apple. She's going to look at it. She's going to pick it up. She's probably going to put it in her mouth. Those were a bunch of hippies at this house, and she's put that thing in her mouth and taste it. And she got so excited. And I realized, oh, there's kids in my yard late at night. They were picking cherries, is what they were doing. Like they were picking cherries and probably throwing them at each other because they were a bunch of little boys. And so when we're awake and like a child, we see things, we stop and we see the beauty, the majesty, the absolute wonder. I had no idea a cherry tree could grow so big, like this giant tree in my yard. And then, I went to, I think it's called Lassen National Park. It's in Northern California. It's a volcano national park. And these gigantic Douglas fir trees. Like we have Doug fir trees here in Colorado, but these ones must be twice as tall at least. Like when you're awake, you see how big things are. And then I saw the redwoods. It's like, my Lord, I love the redwoods. My favorite place on the planet is the redwoods on the coast. You see the beauty. You see the beauty. You experience it. You feel it. When you walk into a redwood forest, it feels as if you're walking into this great temple. This great temple. And it's so wonderful. But most of us, we do not see with the lens of our heart. We don't see with the lens of our heart. Oh, I apologize. I have to screw on something up here on Facebook here. There we go. We don't see through the lens of our heart. We see through our mask. Through our mask. And so if you all close your eyes, again, we'll play this little inquiry game. Is what makes up your mask? A mask it's a filter that we have over the space of our heart. What makes up? What makes up our mask? And I invite you to feel into your mask. So like one of the things that might make up your mask is your politics. One of the things that makes up your mask may be your spiritual identity. I'm a Buddhist, I'm a yogi, I'm a Christian mystic. I'm a practice Kashmir Shaivism or whatever it is. There's our gender plays into this, our age plays into this, our where you grew up. And so if you look at your mask, you feel into your mask. Like, how does your mask feel? Sometimes we have a mask that feels kind of all right. Now, if your mask is in alignment with truth, it's going to feel kind of all right. If your mask is really out of alignment with truth, if you have a mask of being a victim or an offender, troublemaker, a rebel. Now again, I'm going to invite you to see, like, how does my mask feel? How does your mask feel? Like some of us have a really unhappy mask. It's a mask that's always judging and attacking. How does it feel? would I be willing to let go of, some of the qualities, some of the denseness of my mask? Like, what are some of the qualities you'd be willing to let go of? Some of the things that make up your mask. What are some of the qualities on your mask that weigh you down? If anyone's ever seen any of those theater masks that they used to wear, like the Greeks and the Romans or whoever it was wore those masks back in the day, some of them were really heavy, like really heavy. You ever wore a heavy Halloween mask or costume? You're like, geez. Like, is there any aspect of your mask that is really heavy that you'd be willing to put down? Now, if you come back right into that point of clarity in the heart, that point of bodhicitta, I want you to see, what is the weight of bodhicitta? Like, what is the weight of clarity? Of course, you see right away, well, it's weightless. It's not heavy. It's not dense. And so then I would ask you, well, which one? Which one do you want to see life through, with, as? Which one do you want to be? Which one do you want to embody? The heavy one or the light one? And then I'm going to invite you just one more time to look at that mask and see if you can find any aspect of it that you haven't seen before. You haven't seen before. Maybe an aspect of the shadow of your mask. Sometimes there's some old parts of the mask that are so old, but they're distorting our view and we don't even realize it. Things we've had since childhood or from previous incarnations. And just to see that. And as we come back to this place of bodhicitta, this point of clarity, and what would life be like if we just made this our home? If we made this our home. And so anyways, you can open your eyes again. It's a funny thing. I can remember when I was a high school teacher, many years ago. And I didn't do this in my class, but I helped another teacher with a class. And this teacher was like a Jungian, individual. So she had all the students make a mask of their self-image. And I can't tell you how many of those boys put the what's it called? Is it the Wu-Tang Clan? On their mask. Like, that's what they are. Like, they're they do it, this thing, the Wu-Tang. I never really listened to rap music, so I never really got into it. But that was their thing. Like, that's what made up their mask. Like, they were their music. They were their music. And the girls, like a lot of the girls, they put like fashion logos on their masks. It's like, okay, I am my clothes. It's like, gosh, of course we're deeper than our clothing. Of course we're deeper than our music. Some people, I was at this wedding, and again, like, a wedding oftentimes is just like a giant mask, like everyone's just wearing a mask. And it's like we all dress up and we look a certain way, like this is what we are for the day. And of course, the bride, what is her mask? The mask of the princess. The princess. It's interesting how invested people get in their mask and how much pain and sorrow it causes. But when we step into this point of ultimate bodhicitta, like when you truly feel into the depth of your heart, you see that you're already whole and complete. You're already beautiful. You're already totally and completely good, complete, whole. You're already totally free. You don't have to go anywhere and prove upon yourself. When we truly get in touch with the depth of our being. And so this is the freedom of spiritual awakening, is the recognition of who and what you are. And you're free to be this. And you're free to say no to all the nonsense. You don't have to be or support or uplift or uphold or guard or defend, some image. Some image. I was, with family for, a lot of time on my little hiatus there. And, there's times when families can be very offensive, and there was someone, I can't even remember who it was, but someone, they kept like rejecting me or offending me in a certain way. And I can remember I just looked at it and says, like, do I need to be offended? Like, do I need to experience rejection? It's like, no, I'm whole and complete. Like, I don't need to worry about any of this. And it was great because it's like a smiling, and it's like, I don't need to be offended. Like, I don't need to get into some aspect of my ego and have my feelings hurt. Like, I can just be whole and complete and rest here. And it's funny because sometimes when you're with family, there's like old pools, old hooks that kind of get in you. And I started to see this hook like pulling on just like an aspect of my psyche. But I saw it right away, and I was like, oh, like, I don't need to worry about this. Like this is, it was someone else's silliness. And again, like, one of the gifts of my mind is my memory. It's just things happen and then they disappear. And it's like, I can't remember what the heck it was that the person did. And that's the beauty of sometimes we get to be so spacious that it's really hard to remember who upset you or why upset you. But when you're really in your ego, boy, do we hold on to those details. And so anyways, it's always a good investigation on the path, investigation of the depth, the truth of your heart, this absolute clarity and spaciousness and peace. And then, of course, as humans, it's important to investigate what covers this up, like what veils this? What veils this? And so, see a couple questions. And so let's hear some questions. Let's hear from Aaron. Hey, Aaron, are you here?
Yeah, I am. Give me a moment. Turn off my fan. It's hot as hell.
What am I looking at here?
You looking at me, right?
It's hot in Colorado, huh?
Hot as hell. Yeah, it's hot as hell right now.
Yeah.
Okay. First, a little story before I ask my question. In light of the nature of the teaching, I went to Chipotle to get some lunch today, and as I was sitting there, I was noticing that when I go out in public, I immediately go into this mode of being around other people and kind of being a little dissociated and being pretty hypervigilant and all of these masks that you're talking about. And so I was able to kind of drop that a little bit and be in the more naturalness of the space.
Yeah.
And I could feel kind of more of the, let's just say, the organizing consciousness of the space, which was interesting. But then I was noticing this other part of me that's constantly screening for people who I think are attractive, just like hungry ghosts and very natural evolutionary impulse, like just, and I dropped that as well. And I was able to like, oh, that's so amazing, because now I can actually see these people, and now I'm actually here.
Yeah.
In regards to dropping the labels and seeing more through the heart. And I was experiencing how genuine care is kind of a directive experience of someone through the heart. Yeah, and I was just looking around. Yeah, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. Right there in the Chipotle. Right there in the Chipotle.
Yeah, no, it's funny, like, because it could be anywhere. It could be at Walmart, it could be at the, the taco shop, whatever. Yeah.
It was so sweet. It was so sweet. And then I came back. I work on the crisis line, and I had this interaction with someone on the crisis line who was calling me in distress that ended up being so profoundly mutually human. And I was wondering, like, I wonder if I dropped into the heart space, and that also shaped how I interacted with this person when I came back from my lunch. It was beautiful. It's beautiful. So anyways, my question, I was speaking with another student about the Wednesday night meditations, and I wanted to ask you something about them in regards to in the meditations, you are, this is a big question. I would like to know about this. You're like opening to certain divine flows, beings, realms. You're describing them as they come into your experience, and you're inviting the people in the meditations to notice them in their experience. And I'm wondering, for people who don't experience what you're talking about, or who don't feel that they're experiencing what you're talking about, and would like to, or people who don't experience it and are like, I'm just here for the grace, or for people who are experiencing it, they're just like different, I wouldn't say levels of students, but different kinds of students. I know that one time you said that, like, at a certain point in your own progress, you would go to the meditations with David, and that you were also not paying a ton of attention to what he was saying. You were just there for the pure flow of grace.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about this style of leading meditation. And I'm also curious for you to speak to these different students who come to your meditations and how they experience them. So kind of whatever comes around that.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. You did a bunch of different categories. Now I will say this. Often the individuals who have the hardest time are kind of making a blanket statement here. Enneagram 6s tend to have really hard times. So Enneagram 6s tend to play the game of doubt. They tend to play the game of overthinking and doubt, and comparing my experience to someone else's experience, to the group's experience. As this is a common thing that I see, where the people tend to complain to me the most that, hey, I'm not having the same experience as what you're describing, Craig. If I look in their body, I see that they are in the flow of grace. They are in the experience, but their mind is here playing a game with them and confusing them. And so then I'm just like, I try not to be too mean, but like, get the hell out of your head and stop thinking so much. And that's, when we're wired in a real mental way, like you said, like you walked into the taco shop and there was one part hyper vigilant and then the other part scanning for, someone good looking or whatever. Right. And, like that's one type of wiring, and I'll say this, like I had that wiring where you scan the environment and you look for the good looking people. Now, tantrically, when you work with that, like you see in the real healthy side of that is is instead of scanning the room looking for the good looking people, when the heart really opens, you just start to see beauty everywhere. And you're no longer like, it's no longer the egoic thing of like, I'm incomplete and I need to complete myself through, having someone else beautiful to meet me or whatever. When the heart really opens, that thing transforms into, you fall in love with the burrito. You fall in love with the door. You fall in love with the garbage can. You fall in love with, whoever the people are. And they might not be quote unquote culturally good looking. You just like, wow. Like you see beauty, you see radiance, like you experience it in your heart, in your cells, in your being. And so I'm sorry, my Facebook stream is doing something strange on me tonight that I have to fix. But anyways, and so normally the people who aren't experiencing it, one, they are overthinking, and that's just like, that's part of their path. And that's something that they have to trust, that it's okay to let go of this, and to trust that it's okay to melt into another. Melt into what is here without my mind playing the hypervigilance comparison, thinking, oh, should I be doing this other practice? Oh, I learned this yoga practice from Swami, whoever, and I should. And a lot of times they'll go back and forth. So a lot of times the people say, I'm not experiencing this, they're going back and forth, trying to pick up a practice. And that's like a whole thing they might do for a decade. It's like, just trust. If you want to experience what's here, just trust and open, trust and open, trust and open. Now that's one thing. Now, like again, like we could go into all the different kinds of people. Sometimes people come to me purely from Buddhist tradition, so they're trained in Buddhism, and so they're kind of stuck in that, and they're going to be stuck in that tradition for a period of time until kind of they have like a moment of being reborn, and they realize, oh, this is my path. There's something good here, and I want to open to this, and I'm willing to let go of mindfulness as taught by Jack Kornfield. I'm willing to surrender some of my spirit rock teachings and that kind of orientation and that focus. And sometimes we have to surrender a little bit. And like when I was in India, wherever I would go, like whoever the Guruji was, I would just surrender whatever my experience was, and I just opened to what was there. Now I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying this to any of the sixes in the room, but sometimes I'd walk into a room, or ashram with Guruji, and I would have no experience. And the reason I had no experience was because this was not my home. It wasn't my truth. It wasn't my lineage. There was nothing here for me. And so God was just like, I'm going to turn this totally off because I don't want to confuse Craig. Now, I don't want to hear any of the sixes in the room, and you might even know you're six, but I don't want anyone to say, oh, I shouldn't be here. If you're here, and you like what, I assume you like what's here, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. Okay, let me feel into this a little bit more, because there was a couple other characters there. Sometimes, like, all the grace is here, but there's something, like, you're really struggling. You're tripping over something in your heart or your belly or your mind. And, maybe I'm saying, hey, let's open in the hara. And in your hara is a rock of trauma. Like, you're not probably going to be feeling much. You're going to feel like there's a rock of trauma here. You say, I don't feel what Craig's saying. Craig's talking about this realm of peace and opening to this. And all I feel is heaviness or numbness or deadness. And it's like, well, there's just some work to be done there. But the actual grace itself is working on that trauma. And so it's good to know that it is working on that. And so again, if we trust, if we just stay with the practice, if we continue to open, I mean, there's things that when I was on my trip, I was clearing away all these layers of denseness and confusion that COVID had thrown on my heart space. And it like, I don't know what it is. I have some weird karma around COVID, but it just brought a lot of heaviness on me. And I was clearing it away. I was like, oh, like, look at this. It's all like purely physical heaviness. And so, I'm so sometimes we have something that we're working on, and you might not have the bigger experience as I'm describing, or maybe you are having it, but your focus is going to be on the heaviness that's here. Okay. Let's see if there's another one in there. Sometimes God is working, the divine is working something specific on you, in you, through you, as you, and that's okay. Like, so you come, you show up, we meditate together, and you're going to have your own experience. We're opening to the grace. Ultimately, I don't want anyone to hang on to any of my words during meditation or even satsang. Like the tradition that I come from, the words are vibrations, and they come with an energy, and the word itself may be completely irrelevant. And so you could sit in meditation, all the words, I'm going to make myself irrelevant here. All the words that Craig say are totally irrelevant. But if you just open to the vibration, I even experienced this when, like, sometimes I have to edit some of my stuff for YouTube or whatever, and when I edit it and I hear the sound of the voice, I'm not listening to what Craig's saying, from last week or whatever, but I start to feel this flow and this energy comes down into the room. I'm blessed by something that was coming through this one. And so,
that's weird.
And again, like, I don't even know what I was saying. So I'm not even paying attention to what I'm saying. And so that's, so again, like, I don't want anyone to hold on to it really tight. Like, I don't teach in a way, I don't know any, like Zen Buddhism was really exact and tight, or Tibetan Tantra, where it's this really sharp visualization with this particular deity and the 10,000 petal lotus, and it has to go in this direction, and then the light shines. Like, I just open to what grace is flowing through me, and it's never, like, I don't have an idea of what should come or how it should come. I open, and basically God is showing me. And what's really happening is God is showing us. I'm just the one giving voice to it. And so, maybe I'll leave it at that. Is I want people to come. I want you to stay, even if your experience is a little bit different or really different. I'll add one more just because. We are doing work. I haven't spoken about this much, but as a sangha, we are actually doing work for the world, literally. I don't want any of us to form a cult or anything, but we are doing this transformational work for the world. When we show up and we meet in this way and we open in a very particular way, we are doing work that's working on changing the collective consciousness of humanity. We are also doing work individually. Now, whenever we sit together, we're doing something for the fabric of this world, because we could all be watching CNN right now and getting fired up about whatever's on the news right now. Like, we could be doing that consciousness. Trump is bad. He's still bad. We need to get him. And it's like, damn, like, are you guys still worried about Trump? Like, are we still playing this game? Like we could be doing that thing. right? Or we could be hating my new favorite. Hope I don't upset anyone. What's his name? John Kennedy. Guy actually speaks truth. And you look at anything on him on the media, they just trash him completely. They say he's a anti-vaxxer, all this stuff. They go after him like so hard. But it's like we get into some political vibration. You know, maybe someone just had a political vibration there. Oh, Craig likes Kennedy. He's bad. You know, he's anti-whatever. And it's like, but we're not doing that. We're opening our heart to this flow of grace, this flow of divinity, this flow of radiance. That's what we're doing as a Sangha. But then simultaneously, individually, we all have our path. And God may just take you and put you just in a laser-like way, to be pouring energy right into your heart, and only your heart, right into your crown chakra, your third eye, really trying to bust that thing open, or really trying to break something down, or some kind of thing that you're holding on to. And you may have a really different experience. You may be like, you know, there'd be times when I'd sit with my teacher, like, oh my God, I'm just sitting here and it feels like I'm in a microwave oven. And he's talking about this peace and the spacious, and I feel like I'm just being fried in this oven. And again, well, that's our individual work. That's our individual work. And, you know, a lot of people teach, well, there's no such thing as a bad meditation. And I'd like to agree with that. If you sit down, if you're opening, if you're even attempting to open, even if you're failing miserably at opening, you're doing it right. You're doing it right. You're doing it right. Because again, like we could be on the Twitter right now hating someone because you're a Republican and I have to hate you, and you are a racist bigot and the worst. And it's just like, or you're a Democrat and you're whatever. And it's like, we could be playing that game, and we're not playing a game of division. We're playing a game of saying, I'm human, I'm confused, I'm trying to open. Lord have mercy on me. Help me to open. Help me to open. And we just show up. And again, like a lot of people, like they just sit and they sit and they sit and they fail 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 and they fail. And oh my God, they fail. And then they go out and they fail some more. And then they forget about the path. And then they step onto it 3 years later and they fail again. And then boom, like something happens. It's like, what the hell? But it's because we keep showing up and we're breaking down all these layers of pain and confusion and resistance. And so I hope there was something.
Yeah, real quick before I go,
Yeah.
I want to say, as a student of yours and a student of yours over a number of years now, I definitely started thinking that I knew more than you did and wondering what the hell was going on in the meditations,
Yeah.
but being open, very mentally grabby, but I could feel the grace.
Yeah.
And as I've matured a little bit, and especially over the past months of coming to just a different space, that vibratory quality that you're talking about has become very real. And I just think you're the best thing in the whole wide world right now, because it's just like the flow of energy that's coming through. I'm just like, whoa, I cannot believe that I was funneling so much of this out by grabbing onto it through my mind. I mean, I was getting it, but not as fully as I am now. And I just wanted to say that as a student.
Yeah. And I'll say that as a student as well, because, you know, I'm the first one who receives it. Like I open. And so, you know, all wisdom, all honor, all praise we give to the divine. I'm really an idiot. And, you know, if you listen, you're like, this guy, he's clown, you know, like he doesn't know what's going on, but I'm really open clown. And when you're open, then you can get in this flow, and that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. But my mind is really toast. It's not eloquent. I'm dyslexic. I get confused, you know, and it's like, I don't have some grand teaching that's laid out in the 4 steps to noble enlightenment. I open to what's here.
Yeah.
That's what this path is about, is the intelligence of God. And so we are getting out of the way. and it's human, part of it's a funny thing when we begin to embody the truth. There's always going to be like a little shred of our ego that takes it on and says, this is mine and I know this. And that's actually a little bit good, because it kind of grounds it and it makes it your own. But
Mm.
eventually that'll break, but it'll break after the thing has taken root. And so it's actually a fair thing for people to, sometimes, like, if you begin to think I'm smarter than the teacher, that probably means there's a lot of things that have been integrated. You're either total arrogant prick, or there's some things that are like really integrating in your
Yeah.
consciousness, and that's good. We want that. I want everyone to think, to think, and then to actually realize I know a thing or two. Like, this is what we're wanting. That's what this path is about, is for us, to embody the truth, to embody it, to live it, to make it one's own. Like, again, I'm not starting a cult here. I want everyone to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. And so that's a developmental thing. And it's important never to be too hard on ourselves. Like, our ego does these things, but when we step way back and we look at it, teenagers do the same thing. It's like they say, like, I'm this and I'm that. And when they're saying I am this thing, or I know, they're starting to individuate, but they're gaining their own authority. They're getting to
Mm.
know their own truth. They're embodying the truth. They're trying things on. They make it their own. And that helps them to develop and grow into something greater. So that's a beautiful thing. And of course, it's a beautiful thing when it breaks and it becomes less ego and a more just an inner knowing of
Yeah.
this depth and of these realms of divinity.
Yeah.
And also, of course, there's like this radical humility to balance it, where it's like, I totally know, and like, I totally don't know at
Ah,
all. Like, I had this funny moment. I was in my brother's house. I've been to my brother's house many times, and I was just in his kitchen. And as it sounds really silly, but I was just staring at his kitchen. I was like, my God, this kitchen is so big, so big. And people are like, man, that's there's nothing great about that. But it's like I was seeing his kitchen again for the first time from this place of humility. I was seeing the volume of space that was in it. My brother, he lives in this big
mm.
farmhouse, and I was like, God, I think my whole house can fit in your kitchen. Like, it just felt this much space. And and again, like, I look at his face and I was like, oh, this is my brother.
Ah,
This is my brother. And I seen my brother, and he took me up his he lives on the side of a mountain. And last 2 years, I think the last 3 years, he's had massive fires on his mountain. And so I had this idea of his mountain was being destroyed, and I went back and I saw it, and it's grown back in just in 3 years, and it was just like so beautiful. And he showed me all these aspects of his mountain that I haven't seen before. I was like, oh my God! And there's these huge boulders and cliffs and mountains and streams, and it's just all this beauty and resiliency of the earth. And when we're awake and we're humble, like, we see life, and it's actually shocking. Like, you're shocked by the immensity of it, the beauty of it, the spaciousness of it, the peace of it, the radiance of it.
mm.
And it's glorious. Again, just even like to sit in someone's kitchen. And I was even in awe of the burners on his stove. I was like, oh, you turn the knob and the flame comes out. I was like, look at that. Like, on my stove, I have a really old house, and you turn the knob, you have to turn it like 15 times to get that thing to click and light up. And it's just, I was like, man, look at this stove. And it's like you fall in love with a stove. And again, it sounds silly, but being awake, like,
It's
we're
beautiful.
eternally amazed
It's
at
beautiful.
the little things.
Yeah.
The little things in life. Like, I mean, I just go on and on, but Like the other day I got in a cold plunge and it was 54 degrees. And I was like, oh, like this is great. Like this isn't so cold. And then I got in one today that was 44 degrees. I was like, oh my Lord, this is so cold. Like the cold is so cold and the heat is so hot and the sky is so blue. And it's just, you start to fall in love. Like, and it can get a little nutty because it's almost like you're walking around just dripping on
Yeah,
how
like a god
beautiful.
drugs. That's
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it's like that. I get what's it called? People say that about me a lot. They're like, "Are you on something?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on grace, on grace." So, anyways, well, good to see you, Aaron. Good to see
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for the question.
Much love.
Yeah, the sharing. All right. Okay. It says Teddy Lightfoot, isn't it, Terry?
Yeah, that was my name in my last life. I don't know. I don't know why I misspelled that,
Okay.
but it's
Yeah.
funny. Um,
With
I'm so
Terry,
glad
you're
to see
little.
you, Craig.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Terry. You're a little broken up, so if you have a question, say it
Oh, am I?
short and quick, so I can hear it.
I'll do my best. Um, just lately. Oh, and I wanted to thank Aaron for his question because I've been wanting to ask that for so long. Thank you. Lately, I've been noticing, or there's been a deeper level of noticing, perhaps because, I don't know, there's more forgiveness, there's more trust, and I've been noticing more subtle present moments of like vestiges of old behaviors that no longer have meaning for me. And
Yeah.
I'm like actually seeing them now. And like for example, hoarding food, like because I always had low blood sugar, I'm like always afraid of running out of food. And so I like get too much food. I like store too much food. And like the night my husband was like, I had been saving this like one last ice cream bar. And my husband was like, hey, would you get me an ice cream? And for a second inside, I thought, and then I was like, I don't need to keep the ice cream bar. I don't need that. I don't need to do that. Why am I even doing that in this secret way? Like it's so stupid. And so I went and gave him this ice cream bar, right? And I didn't care because I didn't care if I had an ice cream. I don't know. It's not that important anymore. But I noticed that it used to be, and that all these, and like that many little behaviors that used to be important. And it's sort of like there's this habitual behavior that's left over, that it's like part of me wants to keep running that program.
Yeah.
And I'm finally seeing it happen and going, I don't need to do that. That's silly.
Yeah.
So I guess there's just more trust, maybe.
Yeah,
More
no,
forgiveness.
it's beautiful. And that's one of the things that happens. Like at first we see it and then we have to fight with it. And then eventually, you start to see it. And, as soon as you see it, it's already beginning to fall away. And then there's times like later on down the path where things fall away and you don't even realize what the heck they were that fall away. And it can be like you're walking down the street and it can feel like you're just shedding weight and you don't even know what that weight is. And so it's a beautiful thing. The more awake we become, the more things begin to fall away with little to no effort. There's nothing wrong with effort. Like sometimes in the beginning, we need a little effort, but as we mature on the path, like you said, you start to see like, I don't need to be hoarding, ice cream or an ice cream sandwich, or whatever it is. It's like, I don't need to hoard that. And just so we're all being transparent here. Like I just spent a week camping in Oregon, and we went to a wedding one night, and we stole half a pie, and it's just like, like we stole half a pie. We took it back to the campsite, and I ate a big chunk of it. And it was, so sometimes like we have these little behaviors, and sometimes they're a little fun, and sometimes they fall away, and sometimes they're a big deal, sometimes they're no big deal. If we're going into a bakery and stealing a pie, well, then it's a problem. But, it's the end of the night at the wedding. We're just like, we're going to take half this thing and get out of here and go back to the campsite with half an apple pie. And it's like anything when you're camping is so much better. It's like it tastes so much better. But like we're animals, and we have that thing like squirrels have, where we hoard nuts, and we're just like busy storing things away. And especially like if you watch the news, like I had this thing, like yesterday I was at the market, and all these people were talking about this, this war, this coup going on in Russia. And like I came home, I like clicked on the news. I was like, what the heck is this going on here? And then I had a thought, like you said, just like it was just like a random thought of, oh, you should, go to this. And I was like, no, I'm not hoarding food, because what's happening in Russia, like it's probably gonna be just fine. I didn't even say that. I just felt this peace start to dissolve, that subtle, shred of, I need to be prepared for whatever. And it's a funny thing, especially with something as silly as an ice cream sandwich. I mean, we did this once. This must have been 10 years ago at my house, where we had, like, I live in a little town. They don't have like we don't have good restaurants and bakeries and that type of thing. But there was we had a cake baker that came to town for a short run, like maybe a year. And we bought, it was someone's birthday. We bought a cake. It must have cost like $45 or something. And we all fought over that cake. And it's silly. It is so silly how the mind will hold on to things, especially throw blood sugar in there, and we get mean and nasty with each other. The more awake we become, the more these things fall away. Yeah, so beautiful, Terry. Well, thanks for sharing. Was there anything else in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for all your teachings about the heart.
Yeah.
Because I've just been really working on it a lot for the last few years, and
Yeah.
because of you and whatever, because of grace. And in the last week, I did a Twitter space on it. I saw an article that suddenly verbalized all these things I had been experiencing. And the article was about Hridaya, in other words, the spiritual heart, talking about Ramana and all these things. And all the stuff that you taught us was in there. And I was like, I know that I understand this. And this is like so important. And so I shared it on a Twitter space and read the article. And then we all had a discussion afterwards. And it was really beautiful. And I don't know, I just feel like things are just opening up. When I was little, I always relied on my heart for the truth, to know what was true. And now I understand that's like one little part of it. There's like so much more. And anyway, I just want to thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, my dear. So lovely to have you here. And the heart's really where it's at. And that's the thing that everyone's looking for. Like, and we can get real excited about clarity and, non-dual spaciousness and all these type of things. But none of us actually feel complete until our heart really opens. And it opens in a full way, in a deep way, in a fearless way. Yeah. Yeah, and that's why this teaching is so powerful. Well, thanks, Terry. Yeah, so good to have you here. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, I see there's a couple more questions. I better hurry up here. Okay, let's hear from Kirsten. Kirsten, are you here?
Hi.
There you are.
Okay. So I feel like I just keep on returning to the same old stuck place. Feel a bit redundant about it, but I have this, I know how to do the heart space, both with people and with art. I find beauty with the connection, like you said. So the heart space is open, but what Aaron brought up about the hungry ghost is constant for me with everything. And it usually is news feed and food. I think those are the two primary ones, but it's
what do you think you'll get from the news?
I think that it has something to do with almost like the world's psychological development. Like there's a part of me that loves to look at trends and see growth, and I'm kind of like an optimist, constantly looking to see where are things transforming. It's sort of, as I am a therapist, I'm almost looking at the world in that way. But I think that there's almost like a hunger of seeing goodness coming out of tragedy. Like I'm looking for the pearl.
But do you, okay, so do you have
It's almost like a longing.
yes, so if we're hungry for it, like you said, there's a longing, there's an insecurity in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so this insecurity needs to be met with a greater sense of compassion. And so if you feel into your body, so you say, well, the heart, like you see beauty, and that's not a problem. But with this insecurity around, let's say, the growth or the psychological growth of the world, like, where do you feel that insecurity? Like, can you find it? Can you locate it in the body?
It's not so much an insecurity as much as a sadness that there isn't beauty in unity. Like the longing for people to come together, and almost like there's the fairy tale of union between a man and a woman in a fairy tale, the fairy tale of wanting the world to be in harmony, people to be together, and sadness that why is there so much? And so then there's this hope that, oh my gosh, this opportunity might help us break through and love each other more. Oh my God, this might be the one.
Right. And so, what I would ask you is, can you see the ultimate harmony in the chaos and the confusion and the wars and the violence of life? And listen,
I can.
We can't, but there's a part of you that struggles to see it fully. And again, like this is a very hard, I'll say this, pill to swallow. It's a very hard truth for us to recognize, because we have like a human part of our psyche that wants to live in the hippie utopian society in Mount Shasta, Northern California, or whatever. It's like we have that ideal.
Mm-hmm.
If you go up the Mount Shasta, like a quarter of the time that it's on fire. And so it's like, okay, like this. But if you live with fire long enough, you start to see, oh, that there's a harmony to fire. There's a harmony to destruction. There's a harmony to, I hate to say it, I'm going to say it though. There's a harmony to wars. Mm-hmm. Like there actually is. And we may see this intellectually, but the question is can we see this in hell? Can we see it when it's happening to us? When we're being burned alive, when we're out of money, when we're struggling with our finances, when we're lost in some hell realm in our own mind and our own consciousness. Like the only way we're going to see it fully outwardly is if we see it fully inwardly. And so it's to ride this wave of evolution. Instead of looking so much outwardly, I would look inwardly and say, well, where are there places within me where I feel, I'm going to use that word insecure again, a level of insecurity, a level of sadness, some kind of thought that this isn't right. Are there those places within me? Can I find them? Can I hold them? Can I meet them with love? Can I meet them with greater compassion? Can I connect them to strength? The strength. Can I connect them to the vast view? Can I connect them, these places within me, to both strength, love, and the vast view? If we just have the intellectual realization, it's never enough.
No,
Sometimes if we have just the vast view, but we haven't realized it, in the embodied experience of hell itself, it's not going to be enough. We need to have the vast view in hell with love. Again, this is a Christ-like love. This is Christ on the cross, seeing the beauty of the people who are, murdering him.
I actually can see that, not intellectually. And it is linked to that love.
Good. So tell me where the disconnect, because you tell me you have this, and you say there's a hungry ghost here, but then you keep saying, well, I got it all.
They're split. So
so that's what I'm saying. They can't be that split. They have to come together. And so that's the connecting the realms. We need to connect the heaven with the hell. We need to bring these two worlds into harmony. And normally that's through trust. Normally it's through the doorway of trust. Is we open into hell and we trust while we're in hell. We trust in the chaos. So instead of looking into the future for the news to work itself out, can we breathe in the chaos and see, oh, maybe this chaos is the plan? Because the mind often thinks the chaos is not the plan and there's a better way, and the better way is my way, and I know how it should be, and it should end with this utopian society. Can I connect this split? And so is there a big wall making up that split? And is in that wall, is there a shadow of some sort?
There's something here. It's right. So the beingness, I can see even in war, a completely devastating thing. That loving beingness, I can see everything purely, but almost like it requires space for me to be able to drop into that beingness.
Yeah.
Instead, what happens is that longing has a sweetness to it. That
like a nostalgia,
like that seductive sweetness.
Yeah. And so that's what's
where I
creating,
get seduced back.
that's what creates that wall there. And so you said, I drop into it. And so the idea is we drop in and we stay. We drop in and we stay. And I can tell you this, that even like the greatest spiritual teachers, like they drop in and then, let's say they're celibate their whole life. Let's have a little fun here. They drop in and they see, some sweet little thing doing some yoga, and then they go chase her, and then they get in trouble for getting in a big scandal or whatever it is. And so the teaching here is we drop in and we stay. And we stay. And so normally we're seduced away because there's a little aspect of our mind that isn't fully convinced with dropping in. That this is the end all be all.
That's the one.
That's the one. And so, this is, in a sense, it's more time on the mat, more time on the cushion. Can we drop in and stay? And this is one of those things that comes, with time and with maturity. It's like with maturity, like when I was young, I moved to this little town and I used to ride my bike down on Main Street at night, and I'd see like the neon glow like of the bars, the pubs. I see the people in the restaurants. It's like, look like they were having some grand old time, and I was out on the street, lonely by myself, riding my bicycle. And now it's like I ride my bike down the street. It's like, I don't want to be in those restaurants. I don't want any of that. I don't want to be any of that, because I've realized, felt the fullness, the completeness, the wholeness of myself through dropping in and staying. It's through dropping in and staying. And part of this comes with time, just letting the seduction burn. But the mind, the mind can be like a weed. If you give it water, it's going to grow, and it's going to keep growing. And so we've talked about this before, you and I, with like looking at houses or real estate. Like the majority of the people on Zillow, they're just eternally looking. It's just the grass is greener, and the more time we're on Zillow, we're just watering that. Just like looking. I mean, unless you're a real estate investor, it's like we're just looking, visioning, fantasizing, being seduced by these beautiful, well-lit pictures of, someone's house. They don't want the house anymore, but we want it. We want it. And then we want this other one, and this other one, and this other one, and this other one. And we can do that with the news. We can do that with some kind of evolutionary worldview. And it can go on forever. Now, I will tell you this. The more you rest in this absolute depth of being, what you'll find, just like I spoke with Aaron, is this whole thing with our mind, like wanting life to be better, envisioning it better, waiting for it to be better. We're still going to have that there, but it's going to show up as the evolutionary impulse of life. And so there's this thing in Zen where they say, the house is burning down. Like the house is on fire. It's like you see that, you realize that, but you're totally okay at the same time. Totally okay. And you're so okay that you can choose to go out and be a part of the change for good. But we're doing this from a place of completeness instead of from a place of hunger or sadness or nostalgia or seduction. We're doing it from this place of radical depth. And that's ultimately like the teaching of Aurobindo, is we're doing this from the view of God, not from the view of man that the world is broken and needs to change, but from the view of God that the world is totally complete and also always growing and becoming something greater. Something greater. So I'm going to encourage you just to sit a little more fully and to see if you can let the seduction burn. Let it burn to where it no longer haunts you or distracts you or seduces you. Yeah. Good to be with you today, Kirsten. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. All right. Let's just do one more just because we can. Johan, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Johan. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. So I'm gonna.
What do you feel in your heart, Johan?
Well, now there's some. It's kind of.
What is this? Opening and closing, or is it just opening? What is this?
Now it's open. Now it's open.
Okay, good. Good. So I want to start with that with you because you think a lot. And I want you to experience more and think less. And so do you have a question?
No.
No. You can have a question if you want.
So Can I give a little bit of background context?
Yeah.
Okay.
But when you're giving the background, I don't want you to take your background too seriously.
All right.
Okay, so we're gonna play with each other here. Okay, so you tell me the background.
So I did a Vipassana at the beginning of the month,
Okay, so you say Vipassana 1 day, 5 days, 10 days.
10-day,
Okay, good for you. Yeah.
and I had really intense experiences with the chakras,
Mhm.
putting one after the other and coming up, and
Yeah.
a couple times, and every time there was a different opening happening. Anyway, I feel like this whole thing ended, or seemed to have, has kind of an end, not at the end of the Vipassana, but the last Sunday satsang you did, which was very short.
It was
And
very short. Yeah.
yes, and during that satsang, there was again like these things coming up, and then you said, and that's it. I'll leave with you. That's it for today. And then you left, and then whew, everything became silent and total peace. And okay, I'll try not to take my story too seriously here, as you said.
Good.
So yes, it's like I had woken up from the dream of the person, and I was no longer identified with Johan, with my mind, with any thoughts. It was just
Good.
awareness and seeing things, and it lasted a couple days. And but I didn't. I wanted to speak to you at some points. Some confusion came, and okay, let me try to get back on track here. Yes, so this quietness, like for the first time, I had no thoughts in my mind. It was very quiet, and I saw things clearly, and everything was vibrating. And lately, in the last days, I feel like I've been going up again, identifying again with my mind. And
So the identification, can you see that it's happening within a space of quietness? So the identification, can you see that it's happening within a space of quietness? So the people that are outside, like, can you see that all of what's happening outside is happening in a place of quietness? People that are inside, can you see that all of what's happening, the sound of my voice is arising in a space of quietness? That quietness is always here. Again, I like to look around. Like if you open your eyes underwater, like you see water, but if you're a fish, I bet a fish doesn't see water. And so we forget it, just like a fish forgets that it's in water. We forget that we are walking, living, thinking. Like every single one of our thoughts arises out of spacious quietude. And in the West, we call our mind, like we call our thoughts our mind. But like in the Buddhist realm, they call space, like the word for space and the word for mind, is the same thing. That the mind is space. If you look at the very fabric of your mind, the fabric of your mind is space. And out of this space, thoughts can arise, and we can identify with it. But the great question is can you identify with the space that's here, the quiet that's here? Can you know yourself as this? Because this is actually what you are. already. We don't have to do anything to become the quiet. I just drove like 1,000 miles across the West, and my mind was just this empty space. Driving a van. Just empty space. Driving a van. Just this empty space. And can we be that? Can we be that? And if a thought comes, that's okay. We don't need to make a thought a problem. I'm not the kind of teacher that's going to make thinking an enemy. But when you start identifying with the thoughts and think you are the thinker, and think you are the person, and it's just, well, then we can create division where there doesn't need to be division. And so, you know what? So sometimes we have big like chakra activations and they're exploding and all this, and that's wonderful. But chakras they open into space that is already here. You know, so chakras are opening, that's great, but when they open, they're just realizing that they too are space. And light, you know, and so space and light are actually the same thing. You just start to really experience it. So you with me, Johan? Like, can you see, can you feel, can you experience some of the silence here? Like right now? Can you feel into that? And even just ask, like, is the silence here now? Even though, you know, this clown called Craig is talking, but can you notice, can you feel? The silence that's here now. If you feel into your thoughts, you're not going to find it. You feel into the space in which thought arises, the space in which your body arises, the space in which looks like you're sitting on a couch, the couch arises. Like space is here everywhere. Silence is here everywhere. And noises arise within silence. Doesn't mean the silence isn't here. Silence is always here. So what are you noticing right now? Experientially, not thought-based or mentally. What are you experiencing experientially right now?
There's some tension in my body.
Okay, so there's tension, but what is the tension arising within? What does tension arise within?
Can't feel this. I can't. I'm not aware of the space right now.
You're not aware of the space?
Well, it seems like so. Maybe that's just my mind
Let
talking.
me ask you this. Listen, I can see two corners of your room. Can you see the other two corners of your room? Like if you look up.
Yep.
Okay. How much space is in between you and those two corners? No, you don't. I don't want you thinking. I don't want you to think. I just want you to see. Like, I don't want you don't even have to see spiritually. I want you just to see that there is space. Like you are sitting in a room of space. Okay, we can get a yes to that. I just want you to feel into that space. But most of us, like, so that's the practice. If you just feel into the space. So Johan, like if whatever room you're in, and if we're outside, it's even funner because we can feel into the space of the sky. Like the people are outside, it's just like you feel into the space of the sky. The space is holding you. Space is holding everything. That same space is the very fabric of our consciousness. And the more you pay attention to space, the more you're going to feel space. But sometimes, like my daughter and I, we were laying on my back porch. And she came and she's like, Dad, I want to cuddle. And I was like, all right, cuddle. I was just laying on the ground. And so, and I said, sweetie, look up. And she said, what is that? And I said, oh, that's a bald eagle just flying through space. So that's the nature of the thinking mind. Is we like to look and we say, oh my God, it's a bald eagle and that means something, you know. But the bald eagle is floating in space. Like the real beauty. I mean, an eagle is beautiful. But the real beauty is all that space. All that space. And so the more we pay attention to space, the more your experience will change. It'll become more free, more open, more empty, more peaceful, more loving, more compassionate. And this is the transformation of the human being, as we're trained to think, and our whole world is a world of thought. To what if instead we paid attention to space? What if we did the opposite of what our school teachers taught us? That in memorizing and reciting and labeling and defining everything. If instead we paid attention to space. And so this is the way we train our mind, is to focus on space. And then you begin to see, oh, I am space. I am space. And so I did what you did. I went on every retreat I could. And then after the retreat, like whatever I realized on the retreat, I would ask myself the question, is that thing here now? So if I realized space and peace, I'd come home and say, is that thing here now? And then I'd forget about it. And then I'd ask the question again, is that thing here now? Like, oh yeah, it is here now. And then I'd forget about it. And I say, is that thing here now? Oh yeah, it is here. Oh yeah, it is here. Until, like I was saying with Kirsten, is we drop into it and then we stay in it. We get comfortable in it. We get comfortable in the space. And so, Johan, I'm going to invite you to play this game, my friend.
Okay.
Okay. So good to see you.
Thank you so much, Craig. During the Vipassana, I had to leave the hall many times, and I knew you were my teacher, and it was just so beautiful to have all your help and all the teachings that were incredible for me. And the process was more kundalini, that was using this retreat for, or God was just using this retreat for this process to.
Yeah, no, retreats are great. Retreats are great. Like sometimes you get stuck on a path and it just takes over your life, wherever you are. And so good to have you here, Johan.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Much love. And so much love to everyone. So good to see you. I'm going to be doing all my groups and everything. And so hopefully I'll see you all Wednesday. Much love. Good night, everyone.